here. Yesterday, we had started to discuss on this module, that is code quality and build settings of Android applications. We have discussed what is Android manifest file. I'll just give you a brief of it. Android manifest, this is a binary XML file that will mandatorily be present in all of the Android apps that are developed by any of the organization, any of the developer. Android manifest.xml file, it will definitely be there. This is a mandatory file that will be present in the root directory of that APK file. What it will be containing? All of the things that are the components of that Android apps, like all of the permission the app requires, all of the hardware resources that the app requires, all of the activities that you have in the app, all of the services, content providers, intents, minimum, maximum, and the targeted SDK version. These are the things that will mandatorily be in there. Apart from this, there can be few more other things as well. We were discussing about the Android app components yesterday. I mentioned about activities, content providers, services, broadcast receivers, intents, actions. I'll just give you a brief about them. The first one that we have is the activities. Each and every unique screen that we have in any of the given Android app, that is an activity. Yesterday I gave you an example of Zomato, that you first open the Zomato app. In there you have got the splash screen, that is the Zomato logo comes up, and within a fraction of second it goes away. Then you are at the login screen. Once you complete the login, then you are on the Restro screen. Once you select and add the items to cart, you are on the payment screen. Once you do that, you are on the track order screen. All of these unique screens that you have, like the splash screen, the login screen, the Restro screen, the checkout screen, the track rider screen, all of these are the activities. All of the activities will be running on the top of each other. I must have shown you an image yesterday that were containing chairs as a stack. So as soon as you have a new chair that you want to put, that chair will be going on the top. Same in the case of activities as well. Whenever you will be having any of the new activity, it will be going on the top of the stack, and the activity that is on the top, that will be shown to the user. All of the activities that are currently running, that are not on the top, they will be below it, and they will still be running. They will not be terminated. Any of the app activity, any of the activity would be having four stages in their life cycle, like the foreground. That means when the activity is on the top, the user is actively using it, interacting with it. Then visible, when the activity is on the top but the user has lost focus, but the user is not interacting with it, so that will be visible. Then the third one that we have is stop or hidden, wherein this particular activity is running in the background. The application may terminate it for the sake of saving the resources. Like when you turn on the power saving mode, the activities that are running in the background, they might be terminated. And the last one that we have is the destroyed, which means that these are all of the activities that are not currently being used by the user, and these will be deleted by the Android system for the sake of saving the memory, for the sake of saving the resources like battery, CPU, and those things. The difference between stopped and destroyed is all of the activities that have been stopped, they may or may not be terminated or killed by the Android operating system. But all of those activities that are in the destroyed life cycle, they will definitely be terminated, or they have already been terminated by the Android operating system. So these are the four stages that we have in the life cycle of any of the activity. Then the next thing that we have are the services, when any of the process will be running in the background without any of the user interaction. For example, I must have given you the example of Gmail, or I must have given you the example of WhatsApp, wherein even if in case our phone is locked, even if in case we are not using WhatsApp actively, but still whenever we get any of the message in real time we get the notifications. So a background service will be running that will constantly be looking on the servers whether whether we have received any of the message, whether we have received any of the email, and if we have, it will let us know that you have received a SMS. In real time it will be happening, though you are not actively using the app. Even if in case the phone is locked, that will be running. So that is services. The third thing that we have is the content provider. Content provider are the application components, the Android application component that will be used for fetching or retrieving the data, maybe from any of the internal file that is present on the local storage or on the external SD card, or something that is stored in the backend database. From that, whenever you have to retrieve any of the data, when you have to interact with the data, you will be having the content provider. A content provider will always be starting with this as the prefix. We need to keep this thing in mind that a content provider will always be having this prefix, because in the upcoming discussions when we will be discussing about content, about security issues related to content providers, this will be very helpful for us in finding the URIs. So for that reason, please keep this thing in mind that in any of the application, whenever we will be having content providers, it will be starting with this one. Then the next thing that we have is the broadcast receivers. Broadcast receivers are the Android app components that will be listening for events. Like I must have given you the example in the previous discussion that when any of the event happens in an Android phone or in an Android device, like you have received an email, you have received an SMS, or the battery goes below a significant level, you receive a SMS, you receive a phone call, or maybe any of the other event happens in that Android device. So on that particular event, what action do we have to perform? What is our intent? That will be taken care of by the broadcast receivers. Broadcast receivers, they will keep on running. They will keep on listening for the events that have been mentioned in the Android manifest file. And if any of that event happens, like when any of the SMS is received, that particular broadcast receiver will understand that we have received the SMS. Then it will check in the Android manifest file that upon receiving the SMS, what is the intent mentioned, what is the action that is mentioned. So in that case, the broadcast receiver will be helping us. And the last one that we have is the intent. Intent has been derived from the term intention, which means the purpose. So if in case I am reading something, so I have a clear purpose in mind, I have a clear intention in mind that after reading this, this is what I want to achieve. Like if I'm learning a book on learn fluent French in 30 days. So my intention is after reading that book, after completing that book, I should be able to speak French fluently. So that is the intent. What intent does in any of the Android app, it will be interacting with the other app components. Like you have got one activity, and from that one activity you have to go to another activity. In example of Zomato, you are on the login page. From the login page you have to go to the restaurant page. The communication among various other app components like activities, content providers, broadcast receivers, these types of communications will be happening with the help of intents. I'm just writing it down here so that you can take a virtual screenshot of it in your brain, that the inter app component communication that happens with the help of intents. So which of the app component will get executed, which of the app component is to be interacted with, communicated with, that will be mentioned in the intent. There are two types of intents. First one is the implicit intent, next one is the explicit intent. In the implicit intent, the component to which the communication is to be made, that will be mentioned in the intent. And when in the implicit the component is not mentioned, in the explicit the component is mentioned. Implicit app component. Even if in case it feels that Rohan, it is getting a bit of theory and we are not able to grasp much out of it, no problem. Just as I discussed it yesterday, gave you a revision today, in all of the upcoming discussions as well, when and where we will be requiring any of this technical keyword, I will again be giving you a revision that here this word means this. So there is no need to rush through that. Oh, I'm not able to understand much. I can understand things can get a bit complex at times. You need not worry. In the upcoming discussions as well, as and when I will be requiring anything, when we will be requiring anything, we will be discussing on that. So here, these are the intents. Like I must have given you an example yesterday that whenever you will be clicking on any of the link, like you got a message on WhatsApp and you are clicking on that link, how will the particular Android device get to know that here we have to open a browser? That will be done with the help of intent. So in the Android manifest file for WhatsApp, it will be mentioned that when the user clicks on a link, this is the action that we have to perform. And how will the Android device, how will the Android operating system get to know that what it has to listen for, which of the action is to be performed? That will be mentioned in the intent filter. So we have decoded, we have decompiled one of the app previously. I believe that was Twitter. I'll simply take you to my virtual machine here. So here I had a folder source code. APK tool, and here I have the Android manifest.xml file. Using ADB, we had extracted one of the APKs. We decompiled it with the help of APK tool, and in that we have got Android manifest.xml. I'll be opening it with the help of this one, that is a text editor. And here you can see this is a Android manifest.xml file for Twitter, the app that I have installed on my emulator. We extracted the APK for that and then decompiled it. So here all of those things that you get to see in the right, these are the keywords that are related to the Android. Like here you can see users feature, that these are the various hardware features that will be required by this app, like front camera, the flash, the autofocus on the camera, the telephony, the geolocation coordinates, that is the GPS, like that they will be required. Then these are the services that will be running, that com Twitter internal Android service, async service, com Twitter library media service, com Twitter Android peak service. These are the three services that will be running. So even if in case your app is not active, they will be running in the background. Then these are the various activities. If in any of the application, any of the activity is not mentioned in the Android manifest file, but in the source code it is there, even in that case, the Android operating system will not be able to allow you to open that activity, to access that activity. For example, we have a login activity in our source code, but in this Android manifest file, we have not mentioned that activity. In that case, the application, when you try to open that login activity, it will throw an error. that this particular activity that you are trying to open, it is not mentioned in Android manifest, and for that reason we cannot allow you, we cannot permit you to open it. All of those activities, all of those permissions, everything that is mentioned in this Android manifest, only they can be executed, only they can be seen, they can be used. Like here we have got one of the activities and its name is com Twitter Android login activity, and here we have this intent filter. What action is to be taken? Android intent action view. This is used to view this particular activity. Then these are the various categories of this activity that if in case we have to see this activity somewhere, like when you click on any of the link, you get to see various options that you can open it using Chrome, open it using Firefox, open it using the browser. So all of those categories, they will be shown here. All of the various activities that we have, they are shown here like this here. So these are the all of the activities. This is the main activity. When you will be running any of the Android app, the first activity that runs is the main activity. As you can see here in the complete code, the Android operating system, it will always be looking for the main activity. This is one of the things that we need to keep in mind, because it's quite an important interview question. When you are interviewing, when you are taking someone's interview and you ask them that when you run any of the Android app, which is the first activity that runs, the answer is main activity. So when you open this Twitter app, the first activity that runs is the main activity. These are all of the various activities that we have. An Android application can have n number of activities. There is no restriction on how many activities they can have, as long as all of the activities are working smoothly, as long as we are following the architecture, the standards as laid by the Android operating system, we are good to go. So this is the Android manifest file. Now what are we doing here? We are a pen tester, we are a security researcher, we are a bug hunter. So what are we doing here? And out of all of this data that we have, what are the specific points that we have to keep in mind? What are the specific things that we have to look out for here? The complete file, it contains a lot of data, but how do we understand what we require here? For that, there are some of the points that I will be mentioning. When you are reviewing any of the Android manifest file for security, you should focus on them here. In any of the Android manifest file, the first thing that I check is for the permissions, whether that app has requested for any of the permission that it might not require. The reason why I check for unnecessary permissions is that if any of the application is requesting for more permissions, it means that we as an attacker have a larger attack surface. If in case we can get that particular application to perform more actions, for example, you have got an application that can read the internal storage and it can also write the external storage. So in that case, if in case we can find the security issues in that app, using our exploit, we can also perform those actions, we can also perform those things. So for that reason, more the permissions, larger will be the attack surface. We have already discussed about attack surface in our previous discussions. Attack surface simply means all of those places, all of those features that you can look out for security issues. So that is an attack surface. As the best practice, I would suggest that if in case there is any of the permission that you do not require, for example, you have made an application that can be used to turn on the flashlight of the phone. In that case, do not ask for the permission to access the contacts. Do not ask for the permission to write to the external storage. Just ask for the permission to be able to turn on the flashlight and you are good to go. So if there is any of the permission that you do not require, simply do not ask for it. As a developer, as an user, always ensure that if any of the app is requesting for a permission, instead of blindly clicking allow, read what the app is and should it actually be given that permission or not. For example, if there is a flashlight app that is used to turn on the flashlight and it is asking you to give you the permission to access the contacts, so you should be concerned, you should be thinking that this is a flashlight app, this has nothing to do with the contacts, so why will it be asking for the permission to read my contacts, to access my contacts? So in that case you can deny it. So as a user also, be concerned about the permissions that you are giving to the apps, and as a developer also, if in case there is any of the permission that you do not require, do not request for it, do not have it. In the modern versions of the Android that we have, especially the Android 10 and above, you will see that if in case there is any of the application that you have not used from a significant amount of time, like for 30 days or for 60 days, Android operating system will automatically revoke all of the permissions that you have given to them. Like you have given them the permission to read the contacts, to read the internal storage, and to access the camera. So if you have not used that app for more than 60 days in a row, all of the three permissions, they will automatically be revoked. And after that, when you run that app, you will have to grant the permission again. I believe this is a very good step. This is a very good practice as laid by the Android operating system developers, the team. The reason is, if in case there is any of the app that I have not used in a long time, like 30 days or 60 days, even if in case the permission gets revoked, I won't get to know. And even if in case I open that app after some time and I see that the permission is revoked, app will automatically ask for it. I can allow it if I want to, otherwise that is not a problem. But the advantage that I will get as a user and also as a developer is that this particular application will not be much of an attack surface, because I have not used that application for some time, so that application does not have the permission, it has been revoked. So even if in case the application has some security issues, it will not be having the permissions, so the attacker will not be able to get the most out of the exploit, get the most out of that security issue. So for that reason, as a developer and also as a pen tester, suggest it to your client, suggest it to your client organization that if there is any of the permission that you are requesting for, make sure that you actually require them. Do not ask for just that even if in case we have the permission, okay, no problem. Even if in case we do not use it, okay, no problem. Let's request for the permission. Maybe in future we might require it. That should not be done. So for that, what you can do, you can refer to the Android manifest file and you can see what are all of the permissions that it is requesting. This is the first thing that I pay attention to, that are the permissions. Next thing that I do is that I look for this keyword, that is exported. I look for Android exported and it is set to true. Now this is quite an important thing. In the upcoming discussions as well, we will be requiring this. When any of the app component, I'm not mentioning activity, I'm not mentioning content provider, I'm not mentioning service, I'm generalizing it with application component. When in any of the application component, you set Android exported to true, it means that any other app also access that component. For example, you have an Android application and you have got an activity that is like, let's say, tracking the rider details. Let's say that is the activity. If in that activity, like track rider details, if the flag Android exported is set to true, then any other application apart from that application, any other application also can access that activity. If in case it is the demand of the situation that other Android application components should be able to read that component, like activity or content provider, you can set it to true. Otherwise, by default, you will be setting it to false. How to do that? You search for exported and here you see it. So you can see this is a broadcast receiver and its value is set to Android exported true. Let's see if in case we have any of the other value. This is also a receiver service. You can see this is a service. The name of the service is 𝗀𝗏 Android platform Twitter authentication service, and it has been exported as true. Any of the other Android app that you have that is installed on that device, it will be able to access this service. Let's see if in case, like here we have got one of the content provider, that is com Twitter Android provider, global database provider. This is one of the content providers, and here it has been set to false. It means that any of the other Android app that you have, that will not be able to read this provider. Let's see. Let's see if there is any of the activity. Here we can see that we have got an activity. The name of the activity is com Twitter Android settings activity, and here it has been set to false. So this means that this particular activity, this com Twitter Android settings activity, this particular activity cannot be accessed by any other Android app like this. So by searching for this keyword, you will be able to see Android exported to false. This is another thing that you should be keeping in mind. You have to test it for all of the Android app components. May they be activities, may they be services, content providers, broadcast receivers. These are the things that you should be testing. Apart from that, another thing that I test is in any of the application, whether there is any of the sensitive data like the API keys or API tokens, or maybe the credentials of the developer. If any of the sensitive data has been hard coded into the Android manifest file, you should also look out for that. In the upcoming discussions as well, we will be having dedicated sessions on looking out for the hard-coded issues, looking for the hard-coded sensitive data. Then again, we will be discussing it that in any of the Android app that you have, the code that you have, how do you understand, how do you check whether any of the sensitive data has been put up there, has been accidentally hard coded there. So Android manifest would be one of the files. Because we are discussing about Android manifest here, I am mentioning it that if there is any of the sensitive data, you can manually go through it and see if there is any of the sensitive data like username and password of the developers, username and password of the backend database, username password of the, you know, this Firebase that might be used in the backend. Maybe for MongoDB you will be having it. So anything, if in case you see anything sensitive that is related to the, development, that is related to the organization, related to the client, related to the developers, maybe even related to the users. So if in case you have it, you should be testing for it, you should be reporting it to them. Another thing that you should be keeping in mind, that when any of the application is having custom permissions, so what they will be doing, they will be having a permission name that like right contacts. So when they will be defining any of the custom permission, again they will be defining it here in the Android manifest file. What you have to look out for is the typing error. For example, they have defined the name of the permission as write contacts, but when they are actually using that permission, they are writing write contact. So you can see this S is missing here. So this is known as typo in the custom permission. This is also something that you should be checking, whether the custom permissions that have been implemented, that have been defined, when those permissions are being used, whether we have any of the spelling mistake or not, whether we have any of the typo or not. That is another thing that you can keep in mind. Along with that, when, as I mentioned, when you are using any of the Android manifest file, when you are reviewing any of the Android manifest file, see what are all of the components that are exported. Also check whether there is any of the third party server that is interacting with that application. I mentioned that when any of the thing will be happening in an Android app, in the Android manifest file, it will be mentioned. So what we can do here is we can go ahead, we can review the code, we can also review the Android manifest file, and we can check whether there is any of the third party interaction happening with the application, any of the third party server is interacting with the application, and whether it is asking for the user's consent or not. There is a possibility that some type of sensitive data related to the user might be accessed by any of the third party servers. So you can also review the code for that. So in the upcoming discussions, when we will be learning how to perform static analysis, dynamic analysis, we will again be discussing this with the practicals, that if on any of the application you are asked to perform a source code review, how do you do that? What would be your approach? In the industry, how does that happen? Like, I'll be giving you any of the random APK, perform source code analysis for it. So what would be the steps? What all things you will be looking for? That is what we will be discussing. So when reviewing any of the Android manifest file, the most important thing that you need to keep in mind is whether that Android app, whether that Android manifest file that you are having, is it performing some of the actions that are critical? Critical as in when the Android export it is set to true. It means that any other application component, any other Android application component can interact with this component, whether that is a critical action or not. Like here we have the authenticator activity, and here this Android exported value is set to true. Now can this be a sensitive thing? Do we need to investigate further? So for that we will go to the source code, we will see about this activity, what does this activity do, what are the various inputs it takes, how does it operate, and on the basis of that we will be deciding whether this permission that we have here, is it okay, or do we need to fix it, do we need to change it to false, or it needs to be true here. So first keep that in mind. Second, check for the permissions. As I mentioned, always make sure that in any of the Android app that you are developing, that you are reviewing for the security, that you are testing for the security, it should be allowed to have as minimal permissions as possible, because more the permissions, more will be the attack surface, more will be the possibility that any of the Android application, any of the malicious Android application will be able to do the harm to that Android device, to that Android phone, with the help of the large attack surface. So for that reason, always be concerned as a user as well as a developer about the permissions that you are granting to that Android app. So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind. In the upcoming discussions as well, we will keep on reviewing the Android manifest files. So you will get better ideas when we will be having look at the different Android apps, when we will be looking for dedicated security issues in them, the manual approach, the automated approach, things will get really easy for you, and most importantly, things will get very interesting for you. So till now, we have discussed all of the basics. In the upcoming discussions, we will be discussing that how do you actually perform testing for any of the app. Like in the upcoming discussion that we have, we will be discussing about the source code. We will be discussing about adding malicious code to the Android application. How do you sign any of the application? What is signing? Why is it important? What if you don't sign the app? How can you sign any of the app? What is code obfuscation? Then we will be learning dynamic analysis, static analysis, the automated approach, the manual approach. All of them we will be learning. So when you have to review any of the Android manifest file, these are some of the things that you should be keeping in mind in the upcoming discussions as well. As and when we will be requiring any of the concept, we will be requiring anything, we will be again discussing it from scratch like that. So this is what you need to check when you are reviewing the Android manifest file. On an average, it will not take you more than 8 to 10 minutes to review the complete Android manifest file. In the initial phase, it might take some extra time, like you might go somewhere around 16 to 20 minutes. But with time, with practice, the more you go through the code, the more you get your hands dirty, the time will reduce drastically. And when you will be quite comfortable with the Android manifest file, depending upon how large the file will be, the time will be taken. On an average, 8 to 10 minutes will be more than enough. You will be able to get the complete hold of what each and everything is mentioned in the Android manifest file. So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind at the moment. Permissions, Android exported, whether do you have any of the typos in the custom permissions, and also whether you have any of the sensitive data. In the upcoming discussion, when we will be performing the static source code analysis, we will again be discussing more on what are the other things that you have to keep in mind when you are looking for the security issues or the bugs in this source code. This is what you have to do to review the Android manifest file. Now, if you have any questions or queries, we can take them. This is what I had in my mind to discuss with you in the today's session. No questions? So for how many of you the lab setup is yet to be done? Do all of you have the lab setup ready?
From my side, it's done.
Okay. Vikash,
Yeah, it's already done. Sometime it's works slow. Don't know why.
what works slow? Genymotion.
Jenny Morrison. Sometime I got a few issue like IP is not assigned while you start the. But later on, while I reopened it, it got resolved. And sometime it's skin crash. Sometimes so I upgraded it to look about some higher version and check if it is working fine. So I'm not sure why it is happening.
It usually happens with Genymotion. If in case the issue persists, like constantly the Genymotion is crashing or it is not being stable, you can switch to Knox Player, KNOX.
Okay, okay,
But that that is not usually the case. Genymotion is stable. But if it happens that with your system it is not supporting, we can move on to other alternatives as well. We have got lot of free alternatives to Genymotion. If the issue persists in the upcoming days, let me know. I'll help you with another lab setup.
okay, great. Great.
Okay.